And so these troubadours move into the provincial France, and you get all of these troubadours singing in France love songs. And then that moves to England and also to the Celtic lands. So Celtic music is directly related to, and this has been proven by ethnomusicologists, that there is a direct relationship to Celtic music and Spanish music. Now, the other very strange connection, and this was only recently developed in a very interesting book called Africa and the Blues, because blues is a very American music, and it's the music of the African American slaves. And if you listen to early slave recordings, and I've heard them from the late 19th century, where they still had freed slaves who were alive, and they recorded them singing, you can't distinguish between their singing and the adhan. It's just amazing. I have a recording of this, and it just amazes you, the same guttural sounds. Now, these two influences through Europe via Spain and through Africa come into America with the Appalachian Celtic influences and then the Delta Mississippi blues influences, and this creates what we call rock and roll. But I really believe we should call it Moroccan roll, because the connection is really extraordinary. And I'll give you an example. The basis of rock and roll is a 4/4 beat. In fact, they call it the Bo Diddley beat. That's called the Bo Diddley beat in rock and roll. Now, if you ever heard Van Morrison, and I liked him before I was Muslim, if you ever hear Van Morrison he's a 60s singer, he sings a song where he goes, la, 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 la. Say it again. La, 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 la. Where'd that come from? La, 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 la ilaha illallah. That's where it came from. Now, one of the interesting things about rock and roll music, because my father plays piano, and one of his friends who was a jazz musician in New York, Cy Walter, when rock and roll first came out in the late 50s, my father asked him, what do you think about this wretched music? He said, it'll never last. And he said, why not? And he said, because all it has is a beat. But he didn't know what that beat was based on. You know, because I really believe that it's actually resonating in people's hearts. Something's resonating in people's hearts. They're hearing something. And the rock and roll beat is based on a 4/4 beat. And the kalima, la ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, is based on 4/4 beats. And that's why all of the Muslim inshad is based on these basic rhythms. And so you have this connection in Spanish. All the Spanish singing, if you've ever heard the Andalusian singing, a lot of it is singing La ilaha illallah. A lot of the West African music is singing La ilaha illallah. So here they're saying La 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 la. In Morocco they're saying La ilaha illallah. So we just need to fix the voweling for them, right? Which is going to take some work, but it can happen. And in fact, there was an album that won a Grammy a few years ago that Santana produced. And in that song, you know, the song says there's a devil under the bed. He's telling you to be afraid. And there's an angel over your head. And you can hear him say, and then it comes in, La ilaha illallah. Like they sing that, literally, La ilaha illallah. And it fits in that 4/4 rhythm. So that's just a side thing, which I find really interesting. And I think Muslims should study this to bring this out. It's really important that people see where this stuff comes from and why it has an effect on people. So that is one of the interesting aspects of Spanish influence on the West, is the musical influence.